I went over to my dad's house, and we had a long talk about everything. He told me that Stacy had called him and was very upset, saying that I was refusing to help her and was being difficult. My dad was actually very understanding and told me that he supported my decision, whatever it may be. He said he would talk to Stacy and try to make her understand that what she's asking is a huge favor and not something to be taken lightly. After our conversation, I felt a bit more at ease. I love my sister, but this whole situation has been incredibly stressful. I hope she can come to terms with this and we can move forward without any more drama. Now for a few important comments. One commenter, DuckDuckGoose1, mentioned that most doctors would refuse to allow me to be a surrogate since I haven't previously had children. They also pointed out that my sister is asking me to sacrifice my body and potentially my life to fulfill her dream, which isn't fair. Another commenter, SirHP23, added that my sister losing her temper in this way suggests she's not stable enough to enter this sort of relationship. DeltaDiva783 suggested that my sister's behavior is manipulative and that if she has a kid, she might manipulate its whole life to match her vision boards. Lastly, Seductive Norma reassured me that I'm not the jerk for refusing to be a surrogate, emphasizing that it's my body and my decision. Now for the 2-week update. After the dinner with my dad, things have been a bit tense, but manageable. Stacy eventually reached out and apologized for her outburst. She admitted that she was overwhelmed and desperate, which led to her reacting poorly. We had a long conversation about everything, and although she's still hopeful about having a child with her DNA, she understands my position a bit better now. We're working on rebuilding our relationship, and I'm hopeful that things will improve with time. When we went over to my dad's for dinner, my sister and brother-in-law were already there. I spoke to them both when we walked in, but only my sister replied. My brother-in-law gave me the most disgusting look and greeted my boyfriend only. My dad sat us down at the table, and there was just this awkward silence and tension I could cut with a butcher knife. He said, "Somebody talk. We need to get this resolved before the game tomorrow night." My dad loves football. I started off the conversation by telling her that I did some research, and atop my initial concerns, I now had a few more and needed to know exactly what she needed from me. I first asked her what being a surrogate would look like. She just said, "Are you agreeing to it?" When I told her no, I just needed more details, she broke down crying. I asked her if she knew that a doctor would deny me from being a surrogate, given that I've never successfully carried a child to term. She said she knew that, and she would just send my brother-in-law and me to a center of excellence. We can pretend we're a couple, and once I'm successfully inseminated, then I would request a transfer from that provider to her OB/GYN for the continuation of care. My father intervened and said that asking me to do something a doctor wouldn't sign off on was a terrible way to attempt to begin motherhood. You could tell he wasn't on board with any of it, but didn't want to pick a side. He asked her why she was so uncomfortable with the idea of a surrogate, and that's when my brother-in-law interjected and said, "Don't try to berate my wife with these stupid questions. Talk to your selfish witch of a daughter about why she can't help her sister." That immediately shifted the mood. My boyfriend started to yell at him for calling me a witch. My dad told him he could not disrespect his daughters in his home. Everything just went up in flames. My sister was crying, asking me to do her this favor, practically begging. I told her that if I could trade places with her, I would, but I was scared and just didn't want to die. I think that was the first time I had said that out loud ever. We couldn't get more solved after that. My dad asked my brother-in-law to leave because he couldn't control himself and refused to apologize. When he was walking out, my sister told him she would meet him in the car and asked me to come and talk to her on the porch, just the two of us. I went out with her, and she apologized for her husband calling me a witch, saying that they were just on edge and it's been stressful. I told her that she shouldn't apologize for him and that we'd figure something out. She asked me to reconsider and just kept saying, "You don't get it. You don't understand." When I pressured her for more, she admitted that her in-laws made a cruel joke at one of their dinners recently about how she was an unaliver, referring to the child she lost. She said she asked him why he didn't stand up for her when they made the joke, and he said because it was true. He made some weird comments about her not being able to make up for it and how he was so excited to see what their child would look like, and how he would never be able to look into a child and see pieces of them both. So she had the idea of me carrying the child, and he was super on board. But the way she said, it was like he planted a seed, and she seems to believe it was her idea. She said she hadn't seen him that excited since the baby, and she just needed my help to get everything back to normal. I tried to explain to her that nothing would ever be normal again, and that what she was trying to do was the wrong thing. But he just started blaring the horn, rushing her to the car, and she said she'd call me later. I feel like I may lose my sister, but I now am not even willing to donate my eggs for her to have a baby with him. I took your advice and looked up the egg donation process, and wow, not at all what I expected. I want her to divorce him. I am never going to help her procreate with that man. I genuinely think I'd be a surrogate for her to be a single mom before I'd ever allow her to place his child in me or take my eggs to even create a child with him. I had no clue that his family was pushing so much guilt onto her. I have literally been jumping at my phone every time it rings because I know she'll be calling soon, and I'll have to tell her that. I'm terrified I'll lose my sister, but I can't and won't do this. Now for a few comments. A commenter said, "What a manipulative bastard he is. Your sister should divorce and stay away from her in-laws. No wonder that man is that way. He needs therapy ASAP." Another commenter added, "OP showing some healthy backbone, about which there was some doubt in the first post. Assuming this is real, it's a super stressful situation, but she appears to be rising to the occasion. Assholes seems like an inadequate word to describe sister's husband and his family." Then another commenter said, "Wow, can't believe her own husband called her a unaliver for having a miscarriage. I hope she wakes up from the brainwashing." Now for the update 6 days later. I know I said I wouldn't update anymore, but so much has happened, and I can't explain the weird relief I feel typing my madness onto this website. My friend did say that I could just have this Reddit page, which relieves so much stress, because Lord knows I wouldn't have made one if I had to do it myself. I had to watch a YouTube on how to properly use this site and what some of the things mean because people kept commenting that I was karma farming. That's neither here nor there. On to the update. A lot of you suggested that I be more careful around my brother-in-law for fear that he would become violent. I did not listen, and I kick myself now for not doing so. I thought I knew my family well enough, and this was just a bump in the road. How extremely naive of me. My sister called me back the next morning, the day after he called me a witch. I unfortunately missed the call because I was in the shower. When I called back, no answer. It was a normal day until we got to my father's house that night for football. Kickoff had just happened when my sister walked in. She asked my dad if he could come outside and talk to her husband. My dad said no because the game was on, and he could either wait until the commercial break or he could come in and apologize like a man in front of everyone who witnessed him disrespect me. She took a breath and told him how he wasn't being completely fair. She tried to bring up a previous situation drawing likeness, and it infuriated my father. He told her how he didn't raise her to make herself small and weak for a man, and said whatever he did that made her think this is how you have a healthy relationship, he was sorry for failing her as a father. Her eyes started to water, and she just stormed out without another word. When I went out to my car after the game was over, I had 2 flat tires and a broken passenger front window. My dad put 2 donuts on the car, used his truck to tow the car into his garage, and told me to take his other vehicle. He said he would get the car fixed, and I could come and get it whenever I had time, but not to worry. He asked if I wanted to stay the night, but I declined. I called my sister. She didn't answer, so I texted her and said a lot. But for the sake of some of it staying private, it was just, "I can't believe this is where we are. Loving a man should never call for destroying your family in the process." She responded by saying, "That's the problem. My family is already destroyed, and you aren't willing to help me put it together." I again tried to call her after that. No answer. On the drive home, I noticed a car following me. When I was able to get a better view, I realized it was my sister's Mael's car. I freaked out and called my boyfriend asking him to meet me back at my place. When I pulled up at home into the driveway, the car pulled in behind me. Luckily, my boyfriend was turning down the street. By the time my brother-in-law got out of his mom's car and tried to walk to me, my boyfriend was running out of his car, yelling at him. Jeremiah immediately started yelling, "I just wanted to apologize. I just wanted to apologize." He and my boyfriend got into a small scuffle before he got into his mom's car and sped off. He did hit my boyfriend's car in the process. It didn't appear to be intentional, and his car is still drivable. After this, I obviously didn't feel too comfortable at home anymore. I packed a bag and went to my boyfriend's house and haven't really been back home since. My dad did add a camera and floodlight to the back door and driveway, but I'm honestly not too sure I want to go back, although I know I will have to at some point. Yes, I reached out to my sister. No, she did not answer or respond at all that night or the day following. After that, I would notice that on one day, a red car would be following me, the next, a black one. I know you may say I was scared and just thinking people were following me, but I would notice them, begin to drive to the police station per instruction from my dad, just for them to then turn once the station was in sight. On Sunday, I went to brunch with a few friends to celebrate one's upcoming wedding and discuss bridal shower details. The waiter came to me and told me my husband was up front and it was an emergency. Thinking it was my boyfriend and she was just mistaken, I went up to find my brother-in-law. I approached him in an attempt to not make a scene, speaking low and asking him to leave, or I would call my dad. He told me that everything just went too far and he just wanted to apologize. We were kind of in the doorway and it was just awkward, people funneling in saying excuse me, so I suggested we step out to get out of the way. When we went outside, he apologized for calling me a witch and said he didn't feel that way. He told me I didn't understand how hard it was for him, and I cut him off there, saying that how hard it was for him didn't matter to me because his behavior was becoming too chaotic and hurtful to not only my sister, but everyone else. He told me that he understood how I could feel like that, but asked me to again reconsider. He reached for my stomach, and I instantly stepped back and told him he needed to leave and we could set up a time to talk with my dad, but him stalking me was an issue, and we could talk later or I would call the police. He grabbed a fistful of my hair as I was walking back into the restaurant saying, "Don't you freaking walk away from me." Honestly, I don't remember much after that. Everything just went really quickly and a few bystanders got involved. He ended up fleeing before the cops could come. A report was filed. 2 days ago, he tried to come up to my airport terminal, telling them he was my husband and there was an emergency, the same BS he pulled at the restaurant. He was arrested after refusing to leave. He was of course bailed out and has since taken to messaging me the most vile messages. My sister did leave after the show he put on at my job. She is currently staying with our dad, but has been asking me to drop the charges, making excuses for him, and has been very adamant that he didn't hit me at the restaurant, despite my literal scalp bleeding because of how hard he yanked my hair and the small scratches I have on my neck and arms from him continuing to escalate aggressively when strangers tried to help. Some of the texts are him telling me the vile things he's going to do to me, how he'll get me pregnant and I'll be stuck with him for the rest of my life, how he knows that I'm the woman who is going to bring him a son, and if I don't make it easy for him, we'll both die before he gives up. Just really concerning. I blocked his number, so all of these are coming from random Text Now apps. I told the police and they said there's no way to prove it's actually him, so until he acts on it, nothing can be done. I am literally scared all the time. My boyfriend drives me to work, and on top of the regular precautions I take more, and I can barely sleep now. I send my sister a screenshot every time her husband messages me, and she has taken to no longer interacting. My dad has asked me to stop doing this because it's beating her down, but I told him that I can't even believe she defended him during some of this, and she needs to see the harassment that her husband is committing. I feel defeated. I don't even know if me and my sister can come back from this. I feel like I've basically taken over my boyfriend's life, and I feel terrible about it. He hasn't said anything, but his regular gym visits are cut sometimes if he has to pick me up or drop me off when I have to work or go anywhere else because I'm scared. Being gone for a day due to flights, I know allows him to do more of his routine, but now we're basically forced to live together, which I enjoy, but I'm not sure that he does. We got into an argument the other day about the AC temperature. I feel like my life is slowly devolving into madness, and I can't breathe. Now for a few comments. Actual Apartment 4368 suggested, I would unblock him and silence his number so you don't get notifications. That way the police would know he's the one sending messages if he uses his number again. And for your sister, your relationship will never be the same again. Even if you find your way back to each other, it still will be different. And even though your father is helping you, if he says something again about you messaging your sister what her husband is writing to you, make him remember that your brother-in-law actually threatened to rap you and your sister is still with him. A potential rapper. CapOK7564 added, I wouldn't even say potential. This is a future rapper. He's completely unhinged. You're so right. OP should unblock and mute his number. I wonder if a lawyer would consult with her on actions she can take to make a legal paper trail. Cops will still likely not intervene until he causes physical harm, even with threats. JazzyR1 commented, your brother-in-law is stalking you, and his delusion is that you will have his baby. Let that sink in, because it's time for no contact. I don't know for how long, but as long as it takes. Your brother-in-law is violent, hurtful, and delusional. Your sister is beaten down because her husband wants her sister to have his baby and is stalking her like an episode of You. You can't reason with violent and delusional. My boyfriend realized I was looking into apartments and asked me why. I told him that I felt like he wanted his space back to himself, and he proposed. I'm literally engaged. Now I feel a lot better about taking over his apartment. I posted in the advice Reddit explaining that my brother was escalating. He approached me in a grocery store, and I unfortunately did not do well with standing up for myself there. Not my best moment. He broke into my home, did some damage in my bedroom, and broke a few things in my kitchen he knows I love, like mugs and my espresso machine. No, I wasn't there, and yes, cameras were installed after. I took a leave of absence from work and basically stayed holed up in my fiance's apartment. My sister had been ignoring my texts and not engaging with me until I got a random call. When I answered, she was on the phone sobbing. I asked her what was wrong, thinking something happened to our dad. She explained that she had been following her husband and she knew he was following me. She said she was telling me because she went to the police and they explained they were sending someone out to talk to me. We sat on the phone for 5 hours. She explained that after the hair-pulling incident, her light bulb went off and she went into PI mode. She explained that it got to the point where she was concerned for my safety, which is why she made the decision to go to the police. She apologized for putting so much pressure on me, saying that while she would like to blame it on her husband, a tiny piece of her was actually shocked. I said no. She explained that the DNA aspect doesn't matter to her. It was my brother-in-law that insisted on that, and she just wanted her family to be whole. She will be staying at my home with me, just temporarily until the divorce is final and the dust has settled. I'm sure he won't make the divorce easy, but they do have a prenup, so it shouldn't be too difficult. What do I know? I'm not married. Yet. Sorry, I'm literally so excited. Sidebar, I did find out after my father slipped and shared that my sister actually had proof that her husband burglarized my home. She apparently held on to the information because she needed to decide the right thing to do. He said that when she told him that, he told her she didn't have a choice, and he made her go immediately. She apparently didn't put up much of a fight. My dad said he feels like she just needed someone to actually say it to her, for her to get it. But I'm not 100% how I feel about this. I am happy that she made the right decision in the end. The police came to my fiance's apartment the next day. They took my statement and explained to me that they wanted to simply have an agent patrol me for a day in an unmarked car, and if he followed me, he would be arrested. They didn't inform me of what car was following me, but did say that it would be happening immediately, so if I felt I was being followed, not to panic, basically. He was literally caught within 2 hours of me leaving my fiance's apartment. We went on a date, and literally, as we pulled into the third location, he was pulled over and arrested. I drank more margaritas than I should have that night at the restaurant. The detective did tell me I would be getting a call from the DA's office, which I assume will be tomorrow. Honestly, based on how this has all gone, I doubt they'll hold him accountable much. But I am hoping that with them having his phone, there is physical proof that he was sending me the texts, which will add to his punishment. I appreciate everyone who told me to get a gun, but I am actually terrified of guns. A kid from my high school was playing with a gun and ended the life of himself mistakenly. No, it wasn't in school or anything crazy like that. It was at his home, but when we heard about it, it reinforced my fear of guns. No guns for me, but I did buy bear spray and a knife. I have my first flight back at work this week, and I'm so excited to be back to my regularly scheduled program. Today's football games were amazing, and I was able to watch them with my sister, my dad, and my fiance. I hope I don't have another reason to update this, ever. Thank you all so much. Now for a few comments. One commenter said, "Do not stay with your sister. Do not let her stay with you. Do not trust her to not let him tape you. Do not believe she won't help him. I could be wrong, but it's not worth the risk." Another commenter added, "I don't trust the sister at all. I foresee a couple of drinks, a little drop, and a Rosemary's Baby situation. She better watch her back." Am I the idiot for walking out on my husband and sister after catching them in my kitchen? I can't move. If I move, it becomes real, and I have to accept what I saw and think of what's next. I came home from work early and saw my sister's car, thinking maybe she was dropping off some food from her job. But no, I walk in and see my husband and sister naked in my kitchen, the kitchen I paid for. As soon as I registered what I saw, I got into my car and left. I kept driving, just driving, until I found the hotel I'm at now. I don't want to believe it. I don't know what to do. My sister, my only family, and my best friend, the one who's supposed to be there for me and support me. My husband, my person, my other half, the one who's supposed to love and respect me. The two most important people in my life have ruined everything. I've blocked them both on my phone. I don't want to hear any of the nonsense excuses they'll come up. I don't want to confront this. I want to go back to this morning when everything was fine. Now, for a few comments. One commenter suggested unblocking them and letting their calls go to voicemail to get recorded proof of their apologies and excuses via voicemail, which could be useful for a divorce. Another commenter, who works at a bank, advised filing legal documents intending to separate, opening an individual bank account, and starting paychecks going there after filing separation papers. They emphasized dealing with them confidently and not taking their nonsense. A commenter expressed sympathy, saying they can't imagine the pain and anger, and hoped for a safe exit from the marriage. Another commenter was struck by the "my only family" part, and the original poster explained that they cut contact with hurtful parents 7 years ago and thought they were supposed to have each other's backs. Now for the 3-day update. Sorry for not replying to comments and not updating. Things have been hectic. I didn't think I needed to explicitly say this, but by naked, I meant they were butt naked and having intimacy in the kitchen. I admit mentioning that I paid for the kitchen was odd and kind of funny, but anyone that knows me knows that the kitchen is my pride and joy. So yes, when I saw my sister and husband having intimacy in my kitchen, it stuck with me. And yes, they did see me. When I got to the hotel, I cried for a few hours and then I just wanted to tell someone, anyone. The two people I would talk to when something happened in my life were the two I needed to talk about, and it was 11 something in the evening, so I wasn't going to disrupt my friends' evenings and burden them. So instead, I came to Reddit thinking not many would see it. The response I received was overwhelming. I want to say thank you to everyone that sent me kind words and advice. Thank you so much for all the virtual hugs. I know I only commented once. It's because I had so much to think about and do. I appreciate all the love and support. There was so much amazing advice given in the comments. Although a lot of it was American-based, I still appreciate it. But one thing I did see a lot was to unblock them and keep the texts and calls as evidence, so I did do that. After posting and another good cry, I knew that I had to get my shoot together. I didn't have my sister or any family to help, so I had to do it myself. I started researching what my next steps were. In the morning, my friend called me saying my sister contacted her, wondering if I had been in contact with her. I told her what happened, and she very kindly offered her spare room and her day off work to help me sort stuff out. I called in sick at my job, and my friend helped get things done. I got in contact with my friend, who works at a bank, and she helped me start sorting my financials. My friend also found me a lawyer to consult with. After my phone consultation with the lawyer, I was so overwhelmed. I now know why so many women don't divorce their cheating husbands. It's such a lengthy, expensive, and emotionally draining process. I, fortunately, make a stable income and can support myself, and we, fortunately, don't have kids. I have to remember that things aren't going to happen in one day. It will all take time. As for the house, unfortunately, his parents did buy it for us, and to be honest, after what I saw, I don't want it. I will try to get reimbursed for my beloved kitchen. Otherwise, it can burn for all I care. This has been super draining, but I knew I had to talk to them. I already knew there was no coming back for my husband, and when I checked his messages, they were exactly what I thought they would say. I'm sorry. It's not what it looks like. We didn't mean for it to happen. Please come home. I love you, blah, blah, blah. Just absolute nonsense. A small part of me thought, maybe I could find it in me to forgive my sister as we only have each other. But after I opened her messages, all hope was lost. She used the same excuses we heard our father use when he cheated on our mother and beat us. She said the same things our mother would say when she would excuse our dad's behavior and also beat us. I spoke to her this morning and asked her to tell me straight up who, what, where, when, and why. She told me back in July, when I went on a girls' trip, she was at our house and joked to my husband that I would cheat on him on the girls' trip because that's what always happens. He said no idiots here, and they joked about it, but she said he could get even with me, and they ended up doing it once. One time led to 2 to 3, then to whenever they could do it. There was never any evidence or signs or anything that I was going to or even thinking of cheating. I told her we were done, and there is nothing she could do to bring us back together. I later received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother, who I haven't spoken to in 7 years. Turns out my sister has been in contact with her and told her what had happened, and my POS mother, the same woman who beat me for breathing wrong, had the audacity to say this is what I get for taking her daughters away from her. It hurts so much. I know things are going to get messier, and this is going to be a long few years. I've now lost all my blood relations. I need to get all my shoot and find a new place. I want to show them that I can, and I will thrive without them. Again, thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all the love and advice. All the people in the comments that could relate to me, I'm so sorry. Now for a supportive comment. A commenter expressed pride in the original poster for taking charge and standing up for themselves, acknowledging how hard it is, but encouraging them to keep going. Thank you for your kind words. It's pretty hard losing the only family I had, but I'm trying so hard to stay optimistic. Betrayal like this is devastating. It will be long and hard and draining, but I will make it. Now for a few comments. One commenter said, family is more than blood. You happen to have some amazing friends. Keep them. You can do it and you will make it through this. Another commenter added, hold your head high and cut all of them out of your life. Do his parents actually own the house or did they just give money? Cut off mother and sister for good. Your sister is a piece of work. I responded, they gave my ex-husband the money for the house, so it's under his name. And yes, my sister can join my mother and do whatever. They're no longer related to me. Then another commenter asked, out of curiosity, have you asked his parents if they knew what was going on? This will give them the opportunity to hear what actually happened, rather than the lies he'll tell to cover his bad behavior. I replied, as soon as I started receiving messages from his mother, I knew he had been feeding them a false narrative. She's been calling me names for bringing my cheating backside and my slutty sister into his life. She never liked me because of my background and thought I should forgive my mother. Unfortunately, all I'll hear from them is the nonsense he's told them. Now, for the 10-month update. I actually forgot about this account until recently, and when I logged back in, I saw so many people still commenting, messaging me, and checking up on me. To those people, thank you for your kindness. Since so many still ask for an update, and I've already shared such a big part of my life, I may as well give a small update. Back in October, my life was in chaos, but I was determined to soldier through it and show them that I can make it without them and succeed. I had to meet with my ex to talk about the house, and he kind of gave up, and we decided to sell the house. I was reimbursed for my beloved kitchen. At first, my sister would show up at my job and my friend's house, but once I told her that I would get the police involved, she stopped. I haven't seen her since February. I did hear from my pathetic excuse of a mother again, but that was also shut down, and I have not heard from her since the end of last year. I'm from NZ, so my ex and I have to be living separately for 2 years before we can divorce. Although I want nothing to do with him, I'm not too fussed. 1 year is almost done. I started therapy, which has been healing. I wish I had gone earlier. I have moved into my apartment, and I was promoted at work. I have also gone on 2 girl trips and had some extra fun these times as I was a single woman. And I've also just started seeing someone. He has been very kind. Thank you all again for your kindness. Hope this is the update you were waiting for. Now for a few more comments. One commenter said, I'm glad you updated. You're happier. Never introduce the man to the family. Wouldn't put it past your sister to repeat her behavior. Cutting the toxic people in your life brings so much mental freedom. Living a happy single life after divorce is a kindness to yourself. Best update so far. Another commenter added, from what it sounds like, she's gone no contact with all of her family, sister included, the former because of the abuse and the latter because of the reason for this post. Am I the idiot for cutting off my mother after she ambushed me with my ex-best friend who betrayed me? My ex-best friend attempted to take her life, and I don't care. I haven't reached out. She slept with my boyfriend behind my back. We're both 20F, and we've been friends since reception, 4 to 5 years old, UK thing. She was my sister, my rock. We stood by each other through everything. When my parents divorced, she was there to offer a shoulder for me to cry on. When her grandmother died, I was there keeping her afloat throughout high school. I'd been dating my boyfriend, male 21, for about 3 years. We started dating in 6th form, a version of UK college, and he was my first serious relationship. I introduced him to my family. He was many of my firsts. He was sweet, a little awkward being a gamer guy, but he treated me to date nights and always made me feel special. Maybe this is me being young and dumb, but I thought I'd marry this guy someday. This was something I told my best friend. Well, about a month ago, while my boyfriend was in the shower, I saw a text notification pop up on his phone. We look at each other's notifications all the time, so I grabbed his phone to see it. It was from her, asking if they were still on for tonight and if she should wear his favorite dress. He told me he was hanging out with friends and going drinking. Him going drinking with friends wasn't unusual, so I never thought anything of it. But in hindsight, I wonder how much of him going out was with friends and how much of it was going out with her. I saved screenshots of their conversations. I sent them to myself. I show him the messages when he came out of the bathroom and demanded he explained himself about them. I couldn't contain how upset and angry and hurt I was. An argument ensued where I told him he was disgusting and I left his place. Shortly after arriving home, I started getting bombarded with calls and texts from my best friend. I answered none of her calls. I couldn't stomach hearing her voice. But her texts ranged from, she never meant to hurt me. My boyfriend hit on her first. It didn't mean anything. Then it got angry, saying I should hear her out. If I was a real friend, I would take her calls. I'm being petty and childish for not listening to her side. Then back to sad, saying I was her closest friend in the world and she didn't want to lose me. My boyfriend was strangely quiet during this time. After a few days, I got myself together enough to send them both messages. Maybe it was cowardly, but I didn't have the strength to call them. I told my now ex-boyfriend that we were done, and I won't give cheaters any chances with me. He responded by trying to call me, but after the 3rd or 4th attempt, he gave up. He sent me a final message saying it wasn't that big of a deal, that they just fooled around, but agreeing he didn't want to date me anymore. My ex-best friend was more persistent after I told her I wanted nothing to do with her. Day after day, I'd get messages and calls from her, demanding to talk, demanding we resolve this, demanding I not say anything to anyone, saying she stopped seeing him, saying she'll unalive herself if I don't talk to her. Really messed up stuff. I ended up confiding to a mutual friend about what was going on because I was seriously beginning to wonder if I was being a witch. This friend reassured me that my feelings were justified. However, I wasn't expecting this friend to spread around what happened. The gossip spread like wildfire, and a few days ago, my ex-best friend tried to take her life. I said nothing. I haven't visited her in the hospital. I haven't sent any messages to her family. Now her older sister keeps messaging me, telling me I'm a heartless person for leaving her at her lowest, for not trying to prevent this, and that everyone makes mistakes, and that her sister didn't intentionally hurt me. Maybe it does make me a heartless person, but I don't care. I'm relieved she survived, but I'll never forgive her. I'll never forgive her betrayal. She destroyed our friendship when she slept with my boyfriend. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "You are not a heartless person. You are the victim of a heartless person and a cheating partner. Your friend betrayed you in the worst way, then tried to emotionally manipulate you into continuing the friendship so she could alleviate her own guilt. What she chose to do after that is also on her. All of this mess is of her making, and you owe her nothing. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, and certainly not friendship. We have to trust friends, after all." Another commenter added, "For your sake, you need to find a way to move forward without bitterness, because that will only hurt you more. However, you have to do that. Whether that's with therapy or whatever, you need to do it. But that does not mean you have to allow this person back into your life or listen to anyone who says otherwise." Then another commenter remarked, "The whole thing, from start to finish, feels like emotional manipulation on the part of the best friend. I'll sneak around and take what's yours. You need to listen to my side. I deserve to have the chance to explain. Why aren't you listening to me? I'll unalive myself. Why aren't you visiting me in the hospital when my attempts to make you feel bad didn't work?" Now for the 1-month update. Hey again. It's been a while. First, I want to thank everyone for all of their comments and support. In hindsight, I know now I wasn't being a bad person, but in the moment when I was being bombarded by texts and calls from her family, it's hard not to let those thoughts mess with your head. I didn't know if I was going to post an update, but some things have happened, so this might get a little long. Sorry. Giving fake names, ex-BFF is Nikki. Her older sister is Tammy. Ex-BF is Josh. I'll name anyone relevant as I go. So I mentioned in a comment that my mom wanted to speak to me later that day. I had a few replies warning me that she would try to pressure me into forgiving Nikki, and they were right. She came over to my dad's that evening and wanted a conversation in private. She asked if I'd spoken to Nikki yet. I said no. She asked if I was going to. I said no. I was trying to be as firm as possible because I knew what she was about to do. She asked, "Don't you think you should?" My response was, "No, I don't see why I should. I sent her a final message almost a month ago." This is where things began to really go south in the conversation. "Love, she's in the hospital right now. She needs all the support she can get. You're meant to be her friend." I didn't even know about her condition until her mother called me. Really? I'm meant to be her friend after she slept with Josh behind my back? I didn't say anything about her because I didn't want to talk about her. Are you really going to hold on to a silly grudge? I understand she hurt you, but she's hurting so much more right now, love. She's hurting? Yes, you both are. I raised you to be a kind, forgiving person. Why can't you forgive her? What? Like how Dad should have forgiven you. This wasn't my finest moment. I didn't bring it up before because it wasn't relevant. But the reason why my parents divorced was due to infidelity on Mum's end. And it wasn't only a one-time thing, not that it matters even if it had been, but my mum always believed Dad should have just forgiven her. I admit this was a low blow for me, and the conversation spiraled into an argument from there, with both of us saying some not-so-kind things to each other. Eventually, I decided the conversation was over because we were just going around in circles and heading into yelling territory, so I told her to leave, and I'll try talking to her again when we've both calmed down. When she was leaving, she said this, "I hope you're not as cruel as your father." I'm typically not an angry person, but this infuriated and hurt me. I lived 50-50 between my parents. They both made sure I had everything I could need or want, but she felt her situation and struggles were undeserved. Dad never helped with bills or payments that didn't involve me. She expected more. Cheaters always do. I didn't say anything when she left. I just blocked her number and social media accounts and cried. She cared more about the girl who had hurt her daughter than said daughter. She realized pretty quick what had happened and came back the next day, but Dad told her I didn't want to talk to her. True, and she had to leave. It took maybe half an hour before she finally left. The next few days, she kept trying to reach me through other people, but I stayed silent. The Friday after my post, I decided I felt calm enough to talk to her and unblocked her. We spoke over the phone, which wasn't as exciting as above. Basically, it was her apologizing and telling me she was wrong for trying to force me to forgive Nikki, that she'll respect my decision, but tried to suggest I think about it. I very firmly told her I was not forgiving Nikki. She just said, okay. things didn't really feel the same with us. I couldn't bring myself to be as chatty with her as I was before, and it didn't help that she kept giving me updates about Nikki. The first time she did it, she told me Nikki had been put on a 72-hour psych hold, assessed, and eventually released. I told her I didn't want any updates on Nikki's situation. I won't stop her from checking in, but I didn't want to be involved. She complained and said she thought I'd want to visit her, but I threatened to block her again if she kept pushing, and she shut up. Nothing was mentioned about Nikki for a couple of weeks before Mum again broke my boundary and brought her up, telling me about how Josh had stopped talking to her and how Nikki needed a shoulder to cry on. I again told her I didn't want to know, and this was her last chance not to bring her up, or I would cut her from my life. She complained again, but eventually promised it wouldn't happen again. Maybe I should have learned from my mistakes because I know my mother. She doesn't take no for an answer. It was really quiet for a while. My friends and I had all basically carried on from what happened, and even though I know a couple of them still occasionally talk to Nikki, they never bring her up around me or tell her, I hope, how I'm doing. I thought I could finally close this chapter on my life. But nope. Today my mother called me and asked if I wanted to get lunch. I hadn't seen her in a while, so what was the harm? I head to the Weatherspoons we planned to eat at, and who do I find sitting with my mum? Nikki and her sister Tammy. As soon as Nikki sees me, she gets up and tries to hug me, but I just raise a hand and take a step back, and this girl has the audacity to look upset. Mum immediately knows she's messed up because she's scrambling with all of the excuses. It hurts to see you two fall apart like this. You were so close. I thought you'd forgive her by now. And my favorite, she made a mistake. She misses you. During this time, Nikki has been quiet, and I can see Tammy's glaring at me. I'm just so angry and upset. I honestly didn't think she'd pull something like this. I wanted to leave and cry, but I looked at Nikki and said, for someone who's made a mistake, she sure hasn't apologized for it, yet. She had this guilty look on her face and muttered something about me having her blocked and having no way to. I said, is that really all you have to say? And she just looked at me confused. I was done. I turned to leave, and her sister started yelling after me, saying that I owed Nikki a second chance with all the trauma I put her through. While Nikki was begging me to just listen to her and talk to her, I told them all to leave me alone and never contact me again and left. I managed to get out of there before Tammy started a fight and went home, where I sent my mum a text a while ago telling her she'd better lose my number because she no longer has a spot in my life. Then I blocked her and just cried. My dad's been doing his best to comfort me, but it just hurts so bad that my own mother did this to me. So that's where things are at right now. I'll update if anything else happens, but this whole situation really sucks. Now for a few comments. One commenter said, good on you for knowing your own morals and thoughts and not letting anyone else tell you how to think. I hope your dad supports you in this. Another commenter added, your mom is reliving her mistake through Nikki. She wanted your father to forgive her just like she wants you to forgive Nikki. Nikki is not your friend. Real friends don't steal boyfriends and would apologize. After this stunt, you need to block your mother for a long time, if not forever. I am so sorry that she ambushed you like this. It is good that your father has your back, and I hope things get better for you. Now for the update over a year later. Hey there, everyone. I'm the girl who made the "my ex-best friend attempted to take her life" posts. I didn't think labeling this post like that really fit. I first want to apologize for taking so long to give you an update, and to also thank you for your kind words. I've not been able to reply to many messages, and I've had a lot, but I've taken the time to read through every single one, and I appreciate every single one of you. This Christmas has been amazing. I spent it with my family, with my dad. I went out Boxing Day night with my friends to party hard and regret it harder the following day. I'm in a much better place than I was back in December 2023. That's kind of why I struggled to give you all an update, because around Christmas plus New Year's 2023, I was not in a good place. I really needed to focus on myself and work on getting myself in a better place. I have been no contact with my mother. Unfortunately, I've seen her since then, and I've done my best to avoid talking to her on the 3 occasions I've had to be in the same place as her. Not out of choice, mind you, but it is what it is. During Christmas, she had expected that I was spending it with her and her side of the family. Given the events at that time, this was obviously not happening, and my dad told her as much. She lost her mind. She refused to take no as an answer leading up to Christmas, to the point Dad and I left for my paternal aunt's house on Christmas Eve to spend the night there. According to a neighbor, my birth giver showed up pretty early in the morning to catch us leaving, but was irate to learn we already weren't there. Thankfully, my aunt had moved house quite recently, so my mother didn't know the new address. But we came home to parcels completely destroyed on our porch the following Boxing Day. There was even a Christmas card labeled to me, but inside was a horrible letter from my mother, describing me as the worst daughter on the planet. That honestly destroyed me, and I spent New Year's a mess. It's difficult cutting off your own mother. I spent half of January trying to fix things with her, but it came to a head when I realized I was the only one forced to compromise. I finally cut off contact, and it's been that way since. There's been more between then and now, but I think those are incidents I'll post on my Reddit page or in the comments of this post to prevent it from getting too long. In terms of Nikki, I've heard she's doing better. We've not spoken since my mother's lunch escapade, but she's found a job and, according to a mutual friend, found a new circle. Despite everything that she's put me through, I'm happy for her. Now for a few comments. A commenter said, "I'm glad that you're in a better place and frame of mind. What you went through was unbelievable betrayal by not one, not two, but actually three of your closest support system. That's monumentally horrendous, and it's completely understandable that you've been going through an extremely difficult time." Then another commenter added, "I'm sorry your mother turned so insane. You did the right thing, cutting her off. Cheaters and homewreckers tend to band together, thinking their actions are just mistakes. They are too selfish to think about the harm they do to others. They only care about what they want and how they feel. I hope things keep getting better for you."